Hello, I'm Gemma and this is Non-Fic Books, and today I have a reviewed video for you, and that is Philip Marsden's Rising Ground, A Search for the Spirit of Place. And this was published by Granta Books in 2014, and during 2015 it was shortlisted for the Stanford Dolman Prize and the Thwaites Wainwright Prize, and therefore Nature and Travel Writing, and in particular UK Nature and Travel Writing for the Thwaites Wainwright Prize. I was lucky enough to win the Stanford Dolman shortlist, so this is one of the 6 books that I won there, which you may have seen in a video that I did in about October time, because my plan was originally to read all of those books during October, but that fell by the wayside a little bit as I got a bit too obsessed with crime fiction and non-fiction relating to that. So back on to picking up these books, and this is the first one that I've picked up fully. You follow Philip Marsden as he's walking through Cornwall, and he discusses different places. Each section starts off with a sort of breakdown of the name and where it comes from, especially in Cornish, and then a photograph of the place. And these places range from Tintagel to Land's End, and then smaller places such as Ardevra, I think. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but it's his home, basically. And this book really could have been one of the best books that I'd read this year if it kept up the way it did at the beginning, because the beginning third, maybe almost a half, was absolutely fabulous. It was beautifully written. The way he combined talking about moving through the landscape, how different places affect you, why especially the Neolithic remains would have been placed there, and how the landscape affected those and how those now affect our experience of the landscape, was fabulous. I really, when I started this book, I got so into it and I was so excited to read it, and he really wasn't disappointing me. And then it got a bit different and he sort of forgot what his subtitle was, because the writing remained beautiful throughout, but he stopped really discussing the spirit of place. And I don't know whether it's that he didn't have enough to discuss about, or whether he just got so interested in the industrial archaeology that he found along the way that he sort of talked about that so much. And that would have been very interesting if he'd have then sort of brought it back to the whole spirit of place thing, which had been so interesting previously. But he really just sort of left it as quite descriptive, how sad it was to see places falling to pieces, but it didn't, in the way the first bit did, it didn't relate it back to people's experience of place, how that differs from space, and it was a bit of a shame. Thankfully, he then picks it up a little bit at the end, but just not quite to the same level. As he moves through to the latter part of his walk, ending up at Land's End, it is a lot more about the landscape again and prehistoric remains, which I think really is the bit he excels at. He reads a lot of archaeological reports, actual academic reports, really sort of proper in-depth academic books, not just sort of quite waffy history books on them. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but you can really see that that's his passion and he gets really involved in it. And you can see that the industrial archaeology and the more modern side of it, he obviously wasn't in love with it as much, because the writing fell a little bit more flat there, and it was sort of, I just kept on wondering why these chapters were there. Obviously, you can't really skip out part of the, when I say part of the walk, it isn't a walk like in Simon Armitage's Walking Home or Walking Away or anything like that. It's not one journey that he starts and he walks the whole length in one go. He's walking sections of route he's devised through Cornwall, and whenever he has the opportunity to, he goes and walks a section, sometimes on his own, sometimes with other people, either archaeologists or people who are involved in environmental conservation. Really, really interesting people. And some poets as well. He talks about some poets a lot, which is surprisingly interesting. Bit of a cliche for the sort of modern nature writing, but overall, this is still one of the best pieces of modern nature writing I've read. Not quite as good as William Atkins's The Moor, totally different slant on it, and if he'd actually stuck to this spirit of place that he really started to pursue in the beginning part of it, this would have been by far the best sort of piece of modern nature writing I've come across. Sadly, it was just that bit more up and down. It really is beautifully written. He definitely has a way with words, and I will totally be looking for another book of his. There's one that he's written when he lived, or about the time that he lived on the coast in Cornwall, and I'd be very interested to pick that up, because while I don't live anywhere near the sea, I love reading about the sea and about living next to the sea. So after I'm loving his writing so much in this, I'm more than happy to go and pick up another book by him. But I just wish this book had sort of stuck to the theme that it set itself to have. If he hadn't have sort of started out with this strong theme, I don't think I'd have been anywhere near so disappointed with the book, because it was an enjoyable read. The descriptions of the landscape were wonderful. I've totally understood what he meant when he was describing the remains of the industrial archaeology, but it felt like the main sort of thread going through it had just fallen out in the middle. It was a bit of a shame, because it was still an enjoyable read, but because it started off so well, it left me feeling a bit disappointed. Overall, I would recommend this book if you're interested in the sort of modern, slow nature writing, where it's about people's experiences of nature rather than particularly sort of treatises on nature or the countryside or anything like that. This is very enjoyable, but sadly just let itself down when it could have been absolutely stonking. Have you read anything by Philip Marsden, or have you read any other of the sort of new nature books that are around at the moment, because it is a really popular genre? If so, leave me any comments down below, and hopefully I'll see you in a video soon. Bye!